I have a confession to make. I am a salt addict, which is why it pains me to make this video today. But at last, you guys need to know the truth. So, salt is everywhere. It makes food taste amazing. But did you know that most of us are eating way too much salt than is recommended? And that extra sodium isn't just harmless. It can be increasing your risk for high blood pressure, kidney disease, and even weaker bones. So in this video, we're gonna break down the science of salt, how much we actually need, what too much salt does to our body, the biggest salt bombs in our lives, and simple, realistic ways to cut out salt without losing the flavor. So, let's dive in. How much salt should we actually be eating in a day? So, the recommended daily sodium intake is about 2.3 grams of salt per day, and this equates to about 1 teaspoon of salt. If you have heart failure, then the American Heart Association actually recommends you decrease that to 1.5 grams of salt per day. Unfortunately, the average American intake is way more than the recommended amount. It's about 3.4 grams of salt per day, and that's about 50% more than the recommended average. So why is this a big deal? Because sodium doesn't just pass through our system unnoticed, it can actually change how our body works, and not in a good way. First up is blood pressure. So your body likes balance. Sodium pulls water into your bloodstream, which increases the blood volume. So more fluid in your blood means that there's higher pressure inside your arteries. And this leads to high blood pressure or hypertension. But it doesn't stop there. So high sodium triggers your sympathetic nervous system, or SNS, which increases your heart rate and blood vessel constriction. And this puts extra strain on your heart. A recent study in the Hypertension Journal challenges the traditional view that high sodium raises blood pressure simply by increasing the extracellular fluid. Researchers found that in mice models, a high salt diet spiked your blood pressure by about 10 points in just 4 days, but not due to fluid retention. Instead, the culprit was increased activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and this is the system that controls our fight or flight response. And if that wasn't enough, high sodium can also activate the RAS system, which is your body's way of holding on to even more fluid. This creates a vicious cycle of high blood pressure, which further damages your heart and your kidneys. Our blood vessels are not just pipes. They're living tissues that are lined with cells that make up the endothelium, and this is very important in allowing our blood vessels to relax and constrict. So high sodium unfortunately damages these cells, which leads to less production of a compound called nitric oxide, which is key in allowing our blood vessels to relax and dilate. A 2014 study investigated the effects of high blood pressure on the function of the blood vessel's ability to dilate in individuals with high blood pressure. So participants followed both a low sodium and high sodium diet. The findings revealed that high sodium intake impaired the blood vessel's ability to dilate, independently of any blood pressure changes. So this suggests that excessive sodium can harm our blood vessels' ability to dilate without even increasing our blood pressure. And this is a very interesting finding because for a long time, people thought that increased salt in your diet will increase your blood pressure, which will then increase your risk of heart disease. However, this study suggests that salt can cause damage within our body independent of any changes in our blood pressure. Lesser nitric oxide production will lead to stiffer arteries, higher blood pressure, and more inflammation, all of which will increase the risk for heart disease and strokes. So now let's talk about our kidney function and salt intake. So your kidneys will act as a filter to get rid of extra sodium through your urine. But when you overload them with too much sodium, then they can start to struggle to keep up. A study in hypertension research demonstrates that long-term high salt intake can promote a decline in renal function in hypertensive patients. The findings suggest that sustained high sodium consumption can exacerbate kidney damage, particularly in individuals with pre-existing high blood pressure. Over time, high sodium intake can damage your kidney function, and this can lead to chronic kidney disease or CKD. All right, so let's move on to bone health. So here's something you might not know. High salt intake can weaken your bones. So excessive sodium intake can cause your body to excrete more calcium in the urine, and this can lead to conditions like osteoporosis over time. So the translation here, too much salt can lead to higher risk of fractures, weaker bones, and increased risk of osteoporosis. So where is all the sodium coming from? Spoiler alert, it's not from the salt that you sprinkle on top of your food. The biggest sources of sodium are actually from processed foods and restaurant foods. So let's take a look at some of the biggest culprits. So first up is bread and rolls. So these actually don't taste salty, but they actually pack a lot of sodium with each baguette or dinner roll that you might eat as an appetizer at your favorite restaurant. They don't actually taste salty, but they do add up. Second up is pizza. So cheese, dough, sauce is just a sodium bomb. Third is sandwiches. Processed meats and breads and condiments pack a lot of sodium. Actually, especially processed meats and deli meats will have a lot of sodium. It's because it's part of the preservation process. Fourth is canned soups. So some of these canned items have about 1 gram of sodium per serving. And again, like deli meats, canned soups will have a lot of sodium to help preserve them. And number 5, fast food and frozen meals. So pre-seasoned, pre-packaged is just a recipe for high sodium. All right, so now that we know that sodium is the problem, what can we do about it? So here are 5 easy ways to lower your sodium intake without sacrificing on flavor. First up, cook more meals at home. So restaurants will load up on salt, so when you cook yourself, you get to control how much salt will go in each of your meals. Number 2, swap salt for alternatives. These are things like using garlic, lemon juice, vinegar, fresh herbs instead of salt. And this is very interesting because the idea of using a lot of seasonings and herbs is to bring out all the flavors that salt otherwise would. And interestingly, there's actually a large market for these salt alternatives, which are essentially a group of multiple herbs that help to mimic the taste of salt. And I personally have ordered the no salt brand online because I've heard that that's the most popular, and I'm gonna try out myself because, as you know, I am a salt aficionado and I need to decrease the sodium that I intake. But I'll let you guys know how it goes. Number 3, always read the labels and choose the low sodium versions of popular food items. So always compare brands. Some soups or snacks have half the sodium as others. And another benefit of reading the labels is that you can see there's a lot of hidden sodium in a lot of your favorite foods. So this week when you go grocery shopping, I challenge you to look at the labels of all the foods that you typically buy to see if there's any hidden sodium in there. And finally, number 4, watch out for pickled and canned foods. So always rinse your canned beans and veggies to remove any extra salt because the salt is often used as a preservative. And also with pickles, try to limit your pickle intake, maybe once a week. And if you're like me, it's gonna be a challenge because I also love pickles. But I will challenge myself to cut down on them, and I'm actually not gonna buy them anymore. The bottom line here, salt isn't the enemy. It's actually an essential nutrient, but eating way too much of it can seriously harm our health. So now you guys know where sodium hides, how to cut back, and how to start making healthier choices. So what was one high sodium food that you were surprised to learn about? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope y'all have a happy and healthy day, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more science-backed tips, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!